Hey superstars, welcome to another episode of the Virtus Performance Podcast. Very, very excited to share today's conversation with you all. Before I do that, please share, subscribe, review, do all that kind of stuff. The more people that can hear this conversation, hopefully the more woke the world can be and all those kind of things. Today's chat was with one of my mentors, Jayden Gardner. This is probably one of the more interesting conversations we've had on the podcast. To give you guys a little bit of insight before we dive in, we've been working with Jayden and the Alchemy crew for a little over 12 months. And in that time, we've been able to kind of upskill a lot of the areas of our business and a lot of our areas personally and professionally. I think it was maybe about 12 months ago where Jayden first started talking about ayahuasca and his desire to dive in, and he decided to go over to Costa Rica a little while ago and have a crack, and he came back from that trip and had some pretty hectic stories, and he's recently returned from a second trip where he was, well, having a trip, I guess. Yeah. So Jaydens had some pretty interesting experiences, and today's conversation was all about kind of going into it with an open mind and diving into it and seeing from his experience what he got out of it, what he learned, how things have changed, and how it's kind of shifted his whole perception of himself and how the world works. And yeah, it was a quality conversation. I really enjoyed it. We were lucky enough to have Coop along for the ride, so yeah, enjoy the next hour or so of mind-blowing stories. Let's do it. My personal and business goal is to be just a little bit better every day. I believe everyone, especially normal people, have a story to tell. The Virtus podcast exists to help us all find small ways of consistent improvement by discussing the journey and experiences of each of our guests.
Thought about doing sales calls naked. Because I'm like, it's the ultimate vulnerability test. Hey? Like, if you're there naked and you're doing a sales call, what's the worst that could happen? Like on their end.
You accidentally go video call?
Yeah, true.
Tilt the laptop a little bit too much?
Yeah.
Wow.
But if like someone's spraying you on a sales call and you're naked, you're like, you're fucking naked.
You might get kicked out of your co-working space.
Yeah. It's like, fuck.
You gotta stop doing sales calls naked at cafes.
Yeah,
potentially.
You're breaking your own eyes. All right. Like my old coaching was standing up and using headphones just to get naked.
That's great. I started already, so good.
Oh,
mate, Jayden, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you boys.
It's figured we probably should catch up, see we're in Sydney.
We are. We're off to the Goldie tomorrow.
Yeah, drive up to Goldie tomorrow and then have a couple of days end of Alchemy.
Game over.
Yeah.
Won't be the end, boys.
It's been a good run.
Has been a good run.
Yeah.
How long's it been with you boys? A year?
Yeah, a little over 12 months.
Yeah.
13, 14 months.
Good hustle. Well done.
Thanks. First question for you. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Gets me out of bed in the morning. Not much over the last couple of months because I've been off work, which is good.
It's a dream.
What gets me up in the morning? This is an interesting question because it'll go quite deep into what we just spoke about before, right?
Yeah.
So I've just come off doing a second trip on ayahuasca, which is really cool. I think a lot of people probably know what it is. But to cut a long story short on this answer, what gets me up in the morning is a really cool thing that someone said over there is what you do in the ceremonies and when you get hit with what happens on it is you're tuning the guitar, and that's all it is. So it's not a tool that you just use and like it's the end, everything's sweet.
Yeah.
when you're doing that work, you're tuning the guitar. So 50% of the job, the other 50% is to come back and play.
Yeah,
and so
that's
like
cool.
in my head, that's what it's going through at the moment. Is like, am I playing the guitar of life? Which is quite cheesy. Every day.
Yeah.
And that's my only way that I can assess whether or not I am. So a great example would be, you know, before this trip, I could easily be the kind of person who could flake this off and bring it down to like, oh boys, you know, I've been working in the city for 10 hours today.
Yeah.
I'll go back home, do the same routine, you know, listen to something on the way home, go to sleep. So now a lot of my decisions get made of like, really every single day are you playing the guitar and you're showing up in that way. So yeah, that's something that really only in the last couple of weeks has been what gets me up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Have you found that like it's manifesting in certain results or reactions from people in your life, like making sure that you're showing up all the time?
It's only quite fresh, but it's more internal. Like it's such a subjective thing, right?
Yeah.
So you know it in yourself. For me, my kind of big blocks have always been health in a way. Very much like we'll spike in, go ham sandwich on that and pull it back.
Yeah.
So for me, like what's playing is, am I doing good work? Am I, you know, working on my body? And am I doing fun stuff in between? Like, did I give today a crack? And to me, that's kind of what I see as like playing the guitar.
Yeah, that's cool.
And not buying into like the other bullshit of, oh yeah, I'm too tired, or like I'll do this, or all the kind of things that I have been a shocker for in the past. So yeah.
What drew you to ayahuasca in the first place?
Yeah, it was something that I heard. I've been researching it and stuff for years on end. And I actually thought about this when I was overseas. I'm like, how did this all actually pan out? Because I think it is something that calls people. And I don't even want to be that person who's like a preacher on it, to be like, you should go do this. Because not everyone should.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's something that gets called to you. And I think where I first kind of heard from it was around 3 or 4 years ago. So I did my first one about a year ago, and then I've sat 8 times. And I was listening to, I think it was a podcast, I was listening to someone on YouTube, and at that time in life, I was working ridiculous hours as a personal trainer. I'm talking 50 hours on floor, training people, doing all the marketing.
And nobody wants to do that.
Doing all the sales, like crazy.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is, I was in a really bad place health-wise as well, smoking ciggies, whatever. So my days really consisted of waking up super early, living off coffee, training people until I like pass out, have a cigarette, go across and get something from the server,
Yeah.
do it again, repeat. And I went through this cycle of like just living off that adrenaline. And I heard this woman speak about like frequencies and vibrations in people. She's like, you know, if you look at people from a vibrational state, a lot of people can be walking around dead. And I was like, fuck, I'm not at that stage.
Yeah.
But in a way, like
I'm
very close to that. And then they were talking about how plant meds and stuff like that can bring that out of you and like bring it up. You know, the fastest way of how when meditation, they say, brings up your vibrations. And I think that's where it really stuck with me at the start. I was like, I need something fast to get me out of this kind of hamster wheel that I'm on.
Yeah.
Of just shit. Like, yeah, so did that. Then I watched this awesome documentary called The Reality of Truth. It's absolutely killer, which then drove me to this place called Rhythmia, where I did my first one.
How, like, from that kind of moment of realization about the vibrations to like when you like sat down and took the drink, how long was it?
That would have been 2 years.
Yeah, that's cool.
Was it hard to actually make the decision to go and do it? Like, obviously we haven't experienced it, but it's, from what I understand and know about it, it's pretty like an intensive thing.
Yeah.
You've got to fully commit to doing it.
Yeah, 100%. It's it is the most intense thing you can do, I personally think. And it's something that you've got to treat with respect as well. So yeah, there is prep that goes into it. There's a shit ton of nerves. Like, I still get scared before I do it. because there is no one way to it. You know, if we all smashed a bottle of vodka right now, we'd all kind of have the same experiences in a way.
Yeah.
The three of us did ayahuasca right now, we could totally go different ways. So you have that nerve of the unknown, and that's the kind of thrill of it as well. Is like you fully go into
scary and exciting,
the deepest parts of consciousness if you want to. So yeah, I say when I landed in Costa Rica, when I did my first one, there were a lot of nerves. But a lot of nerves as well because I didn't want to fully go through a massive change. And I don't think many people do. And so I was a little bit scared of like, do I drink this stuff and then I cook it and I become one of those like people that are just, you know...
Off with the fairies.
Off with the fairies, yeah. And I was like, that could be a huge reality. And at one point in the first night, I actually thought I was, because everything changes, the visions, whatnot. I was like, maybe this is life now. This is how I see everything. I'm like, oh, this is going to be tough.
It's going to take a while to adjust to this.
Yeah, fully. That's kind of how I got drawn to it.
That's cool. Well, I'm sure we'll dive into like the actual experience and like what it was like being there and stuff. But like coming back into normality in the real world and stuff. And I think we might have had a mastermind like maybe a month afterwards or something. And like I remember sitting there listening to you talk about it, and like one of the first things you said was like, "I'm going back and doing it again."
Yeah.
What was that decision kind of made for you, or had you already made that decision before you left?
No, not at all. Not at all. Before I went, I thought it'd be something that I'd do and kind of tick off the bucket list. Like, yeah, you know, I can talk about it. I've done that thing. Yeah. The amazing effects it has on everything, body, you know, healed an injury which I'd had for 2 years. Just crazy.
Yeah.
Because part of what it does is it works through your body and then brings up the traumas and then releases them. You do that through purging, crying, pissing, shitting. Like it doesn't sound amazing.
Yeah.
And it sucks in those parts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite interesting to think about how many like little traumas you go through in your life that are such on a subconscious level that you don't think about, but everyone has them, and then you get hit with them, and the after feeling of that is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think it's in that book that you're reading, Ikigai, or one of those kind of Japanese books where they talk about the Japanese do this, not with the plant meds, but something else in their life where they'll do one thing per year that changes the next 365.
Is that the Misogi?
Yeah.
So it's like one really intense, difficult physical thing where they might, like, there's like a 60% chance they're going to fail.
Yeah.
Who is it talks about it? Jesse Itzler talks about it.
Cool.
And it's just like, okay, you got to find that one thing that like completely goes, whoa, I've got to make sure I maximise the next 365 days of my life, and then a year later they do another one, something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hectic.
Yeah, and for me, a really good way to explain it is it's just the biggest awareness tool. Like that's all it is. So when you go and sit and you get hit with the awareness, and you're going to hate this comment, Lockie, like I won't read any kind of self-help books or anything anymore because it is the greatest self-help podcast of you, because it's such a...
It saved me a lot of time.
Like, seriously, like you get hit with your own truth and like what serves you in your life and what doesn't, and it gives you that, which is an intense thing. And that's something in a way that I fucked up the first time when I did it, was because I didn't listen to those signals and, you know, external things that were out of my control. Like 5 of those things that it told me happened in the first week that I got back.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there on the Saturday night messaging Drew and just going, dude, I've just realised that everything had happened. Which wasn't completely out of my control. But yeah, it was wild. So now from doing it, you're like, cool, okay, that doesn't serve me. I need more of that in my life. A great example in my case was I was shirtless, holding on to my skin, like my fat rolls, and crying and going like, this isn't you.
Yeah, wow.
And so, look, that's some motivation to get yourself training. I've been training every day since.
Yeah.
But that's some of the things that can happen on it is if like you can read a book on how to get a six pack, or you could fat shame yourself on a on a psychedelic and really go deep.
Look, we're not recommending it, but it might work.
Yeah, still training first. But so stuff like that is where you just really go deep in like, okay, integrating back into the real world.
Yeah.
You're not going to forget that moment where you yourself are against nothing else but your own mind and the medicine, going like, what is this? Like something that you kind of know deep down when your health gets a bit off track.
Yeah.
But to really get that awareness and intensity is something that you go, okay, cool.
From a like belief system point of view, what were like the fundamental shifts you felt over the couple of months afterwards?
Ooh, good question. There's a lot of beliefs that are still hard to swallow.
Yeah.
I'm not a religious person, probably one of the first people from it.
Yeah.
But I saw and was speaking to Jesus in my last one.
Yeah, wow.
So that like things like that are quite intense to kind of have that belief system change and whatnot.
Yeah.
My biggest belief system from this is I truly believe that it will change the world.
Yeah, wow.
And so when I was on one of the plant, because I did seven different types of stuff over there, ranging from the ayahuasca to putting eye drops in your eye that they call the drops of the sun. It basically just meant battery acid getting thrown in your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Sananga.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that was intense. But when I was on the San Pedro, that was one of the big things that came up. It was like, spread this message within reason. You know, doing podcasts like this, talking to people, not, you know, standing out the front of town hall with a big sign. So
that's the important thing, right? Is like having that conversation, and people that want to listen. The people that don't want to listen can, you know.
Yeah, fully. And that's what they talk about a lot when you do it, is like that's how the ayahuasca still works in real life. Like someone drinking and channel through, and look, if one person listens to this and takes action, that's cool. If one person listens to this and goes like, hey, maybe I'm not playing the guitar, and goes and takes action, then that in itself is the medicine doing the work, which is a really, really like deep concept that they spoke about, but I believe it.
Yeah,
which is cool. So that's probably one of the biggest belief systems. The other one is, and this would be hard to hear, and we spoke about before, was getting told that everything's already happened, like your path is already set. You know, having a spirit laugh at me, going like, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's a hard one to digest. It's interesting because like everything, and like we've had the free will discussion a couple of times, like on here, and like our perception of it and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that talking to Logan about it is that like even if 99% is decided for you, if there's that 1%, then it doesn't matter because you know, at least you can alter change something.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's kind of where, you know, everything's set, yeah, sure, but whether you work hard or don't work hard or put in or whatever, it's still going to alter the result in some
definitely. Way. It's a good way for me to look at it would be trust the process. It's probably a better way to do it. Not like, hey, everything seems so just sit around, you know, fiddle your thumbs and things will fall into place. It was more a fact of like saying, be okay, or like actually a better way to look at it is like be present in the moment. I think that's the kind of message it was saying. Like you can like rattle on the past or like think about the future
what's gonna happen,
or whatever. Like it's already that path is kind of there. So just focus on right now because you know it is a bit of an illusion. That's probably a belief that not a belief but a pattern that I've come back into a lot more now. Is like not worrying about the future, like still going for it, like still wanting whatever that is.
Whatever happens.
But being more accepting and just being like, cool, what can I do right now?
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
It's kind of like the difference between like ambition and like fear of what's coming next.
Yeah.
And like something we spoke about on the weekend at the summit was like things that are in your control and things that are out of your control. Like if you trust the process and like focus on the things that are in your control, then you'll influence the outcome.
Sure. 100%.
But what the outcome is, you can't decide that. Wherever it ends up is where it'll end up.
Yeah, because at one point in one of the ceremonies I was at, that all got taken away from me. Like, I blew reality. I had no idea who I was, time, space. I've said it to you guys before. And I think that was a great lesson to be like, well, if this is eternity or whatever it is, like, this is now. Which is a really cool thing to do. And I think, to pull back all those curtains and be in that space at one point where your job title, who you are, your past, who you think you are, what others may think of you, like, that just gets wiped away, and you just have this deep conversation with yourself and multi-dimensional animals and snakes and...
I kind of selfishly, like, I know you've told us this story, but obviously the listeners haven't heard it. Tell us about the first experience, and like go as deep and as many animals as you want, because it's I loved it.
The first experience was the most chilled one. This last one, I turned into
we'll get to that.
Every animal in the animal.
I want to hear the fucking snake story.
Yeah.
And the surgery on yourself.
Yeah, fully.
Fill us in.
Before you get stuck into that, can you tell us quickly about what your preparation's like before you dive into these experiences?
Yeah. So what you want to do when you come into it, depends what you're doing. If people are on any kind of meds for depressions or anything like that, they say get off them. I think it's about 30 or 60 days. So you want to be as clean as you can coming into it.
Yeah.
So it's staying away from red meat, because like the belief system in that is you get the fear of the animals, and that comes up in your trip. So you can have chicken. They believe like chicken they don't feel fear before they get their heads cut off.
Yeah.
Staying away from any kind of like coke or illicit drugs, if that's your thing. A funny one is you got to stay away from sex a week coming into it, because the energies can
just
kind
a
of...
week.
Yeah. A week, 10 days, that one was one of the easiest.
Working week, right?
Which is, it's interesting because it can come up if you're sitting, especially if you're sitting in someone with the ceremony that you've been with recently, you can really go at each other on that. So the prep is just to be as clean as you can. It's a lot of stuff. I avoid a lot of social media and news and stuff like that coming into it, just to be as clean as you can.
Going inwards rather than worry about everything else.
Yeah, like the external noise or the shit that's happening in the world, because like I said, it's an awareness thing. So if you're seeing and taking in a lot of like low vibration stuff, that can screw you around. Because first one I did, it was probably the wrong time of the year for me to book, because it was on New Year's Day. So myself and my mate being in LA the week before, we weren't the cleanest we've ever been coming into it. And it really took me the first night. What kind of happens in it is you've got to be clean to enter the spiritual world on it, right? So I was drinking away on the first night and just spewing and seeing nothing. I was like, what the hell? This is G up. What's going on? Flying all the way to Costa Rica. But the more that I understood it and processed it was like purging for me and cleaning, because I wasn't right to go through there. So prep's not too hard for me. I don't really eat that much red meat as it is. It's more because there's things like milk and aged cheese and whatnot. There's a bit of a diet, but that's also very like up for debate with a few people.
Yeah, nice.
So the snake, this is an interesting one, because also my perception of this snake story has changed since the second one.
That's cool.
So what happened was, there's only 4 things that can really happen in a trip. Is you get this thing called Pinta, which is the visions, like the intense visions, kind of like what's happening on your laptop right now.
Oh, hello.
It's taking me back. So Pinta, that's where you get the visions and all the kind of stuff that happens within that. Your second thing that can happen on the medicine is you get the consult, where you will see some kind of, whether it be an animal, a spirit, a woman, whoever it is, and you actually have this consult with this person where you ask questions and you get responses. And trust me, you've got to ask real questions. Like I was asking very materialistic shit questions at one point, and I was getting thrown around. Like I was getting slapped, basically. I felt like someone was slapping me in the face. I was like, okay, I need to go deeper on this stuff. You can get absolutely nothing, which is a funny one. It's called nada. And so when that happens, the belief is that the ancestors and the healers and the medicine that's doing the work is doing such an intense session on you that you wouldn't be able to handle it in the real world.
Wow.
Which is very interesting to see when you might have, a small woman go up and drink 3 cups and sit there in complete peace and just watch guys and girls vomit, spew and shit everywhere. Or in one case on the ones I was at, a guy who would have been, 110 kilos, big unit, take 1 cup and had to get dragged out of the room because he was just spewing so much everywhere and going crazy. Yeah. So what happens is as well, when you're in that space, you stay in the space because everyone plays a role. You can't, take and then someone goes out and hangs on the hammock and another one goes to their own room.
So many different energies.
The energies do it, and the medicine plays its own roles within it, which is crazy. You could, if you were sitting there with 20 people and in the morning you go, hey, who got, the sacred surgery or this or this, it's evenly split, which is nuts.
Yeah.
And the other one is the sacred surgery, which I got heavily. And what that is, it's funny because it happened to Gary from Zelos as well. One of the guys that we work with at Alchemy went over and tried it, and he got this sacred surgery as well, which was a good story. But what happened with me was I'd been holding on to a shoulder injury for, I'd say, 2 years, at least 2 years. And it was an overuse injury. It was a bit of bursitis. It wasn't just an instant kind of thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
And when I went to Costa Rica, I had no intention at all about going there and this having anything to do with my shoulder. I went there more for the kind of experience, heard a lot about it, whatnot. And second night, I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, hundreds, maybe thousands of snakes come up to my face and start talking to me and asking me a question of, hey, do I want my shoulder to get fixed?
Yeah.
And of course I'm going, yes.
Is this like you're sitting there, eyes open, seeing them, or is it more like eyes open?
Eyes open, yeah. So that's the cool thing about it is, yes, you can open your eyes a lot of the time and you'll still get that to a level. Close your eyes and you go to a whole different place most of the time. But it kind of plays that role with you as well. You don't have much control over that. It'll kind of play in and out. And so what's happened is I've seen all these snakes. They've asked me if I wanted to fix my shoulder. I said a big yes. And before that happened, they said to me, in order for me to fix your shoulder, you first need to heal the wound. It's like, oh, okay, here we go. So in my body, I turned into a snake, and so I'm slithering around, I'm moving my hands, and I'm fully belief now that I'm a snake. And I hit the floor and I start rolling around and slithering to people within the ceremony, and would sit at the end of their bed and start snaking out. And every single time that I did that, they're laying down, eyes closed, they would sit up and purge. And I was energetically seeing like all this trauma and throwing it out of my body. It was intense. And the shaman came up to me at one point and he said to me, he's like, I know what's going on at the moment. And he said, you're about to go through hell, but just know that you're doing it for the room and this is a good thing. And it was some of the toughest, I'd say, hour and a half, 2 hours of my life.
Yeah.
Just, hairs out, spews everywhere. I'm just taking in all this intense energy and then vomiting it out into a bucket, like just consistently going, just rolling on my side, just going for it. The cool thing was, after that, I went back to my bed and just kind of sat there in my own stillness as one arm was going crazy, my bad arm, and it was just flying around. I know you guys can't see this on the podcast, but
Can confirm. He's moving his arm around.
And it was just going in directions that my shoulder hadn't been in years. And what I was processing, what was happening was saying like, hey, this is how much movement you haven't had in 2 years from being in stillness, because I wasn't using it, or I wasn't lifting weights, wasn't doing anything, and it was throwing it, and it was going crazy. And as it was happening, it kept saying to me like, we're about to tell you what this injury is. And so I'm seeing snakes getting wrapped around my fibers, all this kind of shit. And then a big vision came up and was saying that you've been holding on to this injury for years, because in a past life, you know, when I was 15, 16, 17, I was semi-professional tennis player. And tennis is a crazy expensive sport. And as soon as I realised when I was 17, I think it was about 16, that how much money my parents were spending on me for tennis, for a sport that, you know, I wasn't going to pursue, I quit it. And in this trip, it was saying I'd been holding on to this injury for years as shame and guilt for how much time and money my parents invested for me. And, you know, I got to quite a good stage in the tennis, and then I just dropped it just dropped it. And so as soon as I accepted that, then I started vomiting up shame and guilt, which is a really weird thing to explain. But I was just purging and crying and just releasing all this stuff. It's like, you can stop hanging on to that now. It doesn't serve you. Like, they don't give a fuck. They're not sitting back going like, I can't believe, you know, all these years later, I can't believe he stopped playing tennis after all that money. But it was like the story I was telling myself, and this is what's interesting about what we spoke about before, like those unconscious traumas that you take on that you don't know on a conscious level. Like, never in a million years
would you have thought of that?
Since I'm 17 really have I thought like, oh, you know, I feel guilty for how much money they spent, or sitting there at my shoulder going, oh, this will fix once I get that shame and guilt out. And it did, and it was just like, it's a really shit thing in a way, because it's such a subjective split test. I've talked to, obviously being in the gym industry, talked to a lot of physios and chiros about this. Very split down the middle, obviously. Yeah. And like, the tough thing is, and it doesn't really affect me because it's my own experience in a way, is it's such a pain test. Like, give me, you know, what was it before and what was it after? Yeah. Like, I don't have, for me, it's like I went from not being able to do anything overhead to doing it pain-free, which I think is the test. But for me, it went from, I'd say, about high 7, 8 pain to 0 overnight, which is insane.
That's one of the things, like, from a S&C exercise science point of view and from a rehab point of view, we can get caught up in that, oh no, it shouldn't work like that, or it shouldn't happen like that. But if you've gone from a 7 to a 0, something's happened, and if it works, and it has worked, then play on.
Sure.
It's a fairly probably expensive mode of rehab, but hey.
Well, it's cheaper than me doing the 2 years. Been saying that, like, I saw awesome physios and chiros, and there's nothing against that. Like, it's not, that doesn't work.
Well, that's the thing,
But I now have a belief system in, like, direct pain and then indirect pain. And I think it was Eugene or one of the boys on the Mind Muscle Project talk about this. When they're talking about, like, people with back problems, and talking about how some people can have slip disc and have 0 pain, and then other people don't and have heaps of pain. It's like this mind muscle kind of connection of, oh, I've got a sore back today, and then you buy into that over time and create.
And you're the guy with the sore back.
Whereas, you know, you could be walking around with a slip disc at the moment and be pain free because of that mind muscle thing. And when I heard that podcast, I was like, fuck, that's probably the closest thing I'm getting to that description of what was going on with me, because I still obviously believe that injuries are injuries and direct stuff.
But we have no idea, like, from a level of understanding for how our conscious to subconscious works, we have got no idea on how that interacts with our body. Really, like, we've got 2% understanding. And like, I have always been, and this is kind of the dogma that I kind of had, was that science is science. What we can prove. That's the way things work. Like, the whole, like, any faith system's ridiculous, all that kind of, like, that was my belief system for a long period of time. And now, like, over the last couple of years, I've been not, like, moving away from it. I still dive back there sometimes, but reading books and, like, biology of belief and stuff like that, and having conversations of, like, this you start to realize that we've got no fucking clue what's happening.
Yeah.
And like we are just, everyone's just trying to figure it out. And if something works, then whether it's placebo, whether it's a snake spirit, whether it's just good rehab, doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like if we can, like perfect world, we can bottle it, identify what it is, and then repeat it. But you know, I think we get stuck in the needing to understand too often.
And look, I still very much am in the rehab world in that space. Like I, since coming back from that first time they fixed my injury, I've been training twice as hard on rehab stuff because I'm like, I now have a pain-free
capacity to do it.
Yeah, I've got a pain-free way to do it. I'm now not going to go crazy and try and get the biggest chest in Australia and fucking not use my back.
Yeah.
Coming from like probably what started the overuse or whatever it was. But the funny thing was, second time I went back, this time in the US, I went deeper in terms of wanting to go more into the realm of the consciousness.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there in one of the ceremonies and one of the shamans said to me, he said, "Jayden, are you healthy?" And I said, "Yes." And I kind of walked back to my bed and was like, that was somewhat of a little bit of a lie because I'd had this this neck kind of injury that has kind of been playing with me for the last, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Especially on like ring dips and stuff like that. Like it's just this kind of tension thing that can hold on to me a bit. And as soon as it kicked in on the first night, it threw me on my stomach and was like, "You can't lie to me." And it went through my body and just kind of like shook my body crazy and was pushing down on my neck and doing all this stuff, and it fixed my neck.
Yeah, well.
I was like, fuck, here we go again. Round 2. So yeah, I'm obviously a massive believer in the right setting, the right injury, it can do some pretty wild things all in mind.
In terms of like that, diving into that consciousness and the subconsciousness, like it's obviously really hard to like articulate how it felt and what you thought and then kind of like explain it to other people.
Yeah.
Just have a crack, like what's your best explanation as to like what it feels like to be under or on it or whatever?
Sure. I think the best thing to say before you say this as well, because there's probably people who have listened to this and have done it as well. And I think the one thing that you need to take in respect with it is no one is further along it or like at the start. Like I'm no better than someone who's only done it once, or like I don't see someone who's sat 50 times like they're now like no one's the expert on it. It's such a subjective thing. Like my mission with it is just to kind of talk about it, to share an experience, but it's not like, hey, this is what will happen, because like I've done it, and one of the shamans did a really cool post about this. Is like every single experience is so subjective and so different, but my best crack at it is, and especially from the last one I did was very like, it was a strong batch, and I'm not saying this from an ego place, but most people do about 2 to 3 cups over 2 days, and I went for it and did 10. So I absolutely like went there with the intention of taking me to the deepest part of it.
Yeah.
And the best way to explain it would be you absolutely lose everything. You have no control. You have no control of what you see, what your thoughts are. You go in with intentions, which is cool. And most people get their intentions.
Yeah.
If you sit with the right person, it's, if anyone out there has probably, dabbled in acid or mushrooms or some kind of those psychedelics, the thing is you see a lot with your eyes on that. So you could sit here and be like, oh yeah, that picture looks cool. You know that it's just your visuals doing this.
Yeah.
When you're in the deepness of the ayahuasca, you're in your own world and you're kind of seeing through your third eye. Like your third eye opens and you get put into a new world, which can be scary. So me, on my personal experiences, I see a lot of visions and I go into like back in time, or like I'm speaking with aliens, or the biggest thing that I do is I shapeshift. So I turn into animals, turn into elephants, turn into snakes, turn into tadpoles. I go through the whole process.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, I think, like I said, it's a massive awareness tool, and everyone's different. Everyone's different. Yeah, it very much comes down to, and this is a big thing as well, it really comes down to who's running it. Like, who's been with the medicine, what's their background. And I learned that, like, the good way with sitting with the guy who I sat with last, Taita, who I'd heard so much about. And I'd done some other ones which I thought they're all legit, right? But this was the Super Bowl. And having a shaman that does intense healings, can hold the room, he's so deep in the medicine that he knows when a woman gets a period because it hurts him. And it happened in one of our ceremonies. He kind of walked out just holding on to himself like he'd been shot and had to move that woman upstairs. So if you find someone like that, then yeah. But it's just a reset. It's tuning the guitar. It's getting everything served to you, good and bad, to accept it. The stuff that you don't want to see will come up. You'll get hit with that. You'll go through pain. You'll spew it out. You'll cry it out. You piss it out, whatever. But then on the other side of that, you can end up in the most euphoric utopia place that you just... The best description would be if there was a heaven, you can end up there. Yeah. And you just sit back and you don't think about Virtus, you don't think about this, you just... like this grand party of life. You'll think a lot about like the people close to you, but you don't think about like, fuck, what am I going to do? I wonder if work's going okay, because you just get blown out of that. You go past that level, and way deeper into the unknown, into a dream state. That's the best way for me to explain it. It's like being in an intense dream that you're awake to. Yeah.
How did you find like the surrender to it? Because I can imagine there being a certain amount of resistance going into it.
Sure. I had that happen to me when I went and saw Taita, because I'd built it up so much, it kind of slaps you. And so what happens is a lot of the times when you want something, it won't give you that. So if you go in and you're like, I want to have intense visuals, I want to have this, I want to have this, you might get absolutely nothing. And it's kind of like, we'll give you a lesson in that. And so going back to this one, like the surrender, you just get to a point where you can't hold on anymore. Like the more that you try and fight it, the more that you'll get kicked around.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I have to accept this. But inside the journey as well, there are kind of paths that you can go. You can see like the dark side and the fucking rainbows. And it's your decision which one you want to take. And doing it well is going into the darkness, because that's where the growth comes from. You could sit there if you wanted to in a way and just kind of be in happy land, but then you're wasting the experience. So it's like taking you to hell to see heaven, which is interesting throughout the process as well. You're sitting there for 12 hours and at one point you just go, this is mental. This is absolutely mental. Everyone's losing their shit. Why would you put yourself through this? Why would anyone put yourself through this? And then you come to the morning and everyone's buzzing and glowing and...
Yeah. So you get to kind of see both ends, which is probably important, right?
Yeah, you've got to. It takes all that stuff out of you, brings it to the surface, makes you deal with it. Something that you don't do in your everyday life. It's something that's going on right now. You can easily pull out your phone, get distracted and be like, nope, not dealing with that. Not dealing with that.
Yeah. But it's always going to come back up eventually.
It will come back up. And it's a good way to be dealt with it when it's just you and yourself and going like, cool, okay, if this comes up, I've got to deal with it. It's going to fucking suck, but it's going to give me an awesome lesson.
Do you record your like perception of the experiences, like write it down or do a voice note or something?
Yeah, so on one of the ones I did over there, which was really cool, we did San Pedro the next day, which is, it's a heart opening plant med, and it's kind of, it openly lets you talk, and so you write a lot of things down. On my first trip, probably would have liked to write a few more things down, but then I also think I after that experience, there was a lot of like, how cool was this thing that I did? Well, the second time I went around, and after I did my first ceremony, went back to it and sat with people that are deep in it and really, really respect it. I'm like, no, this is a tool. This is legit. This is something that needs to be taken with the utmost respect. And so from that, I had such insane experiences on that you would never forget. And I think like a great example of this, and it's funny coming straight after Logan, talking about truth, was one of the biggest things that hit me on that first night was I got up and tried to take a piss. And I got there, which was a struggle. I don't know how I got there. I was dragging myself to actually find that. And then as I came out to get back in the room, there was a mat on the floor which had a circle inside it. And I just got dragged into that thing for 2 hours. And it was the circle of truth. And so every time I would step in it, which it would like forcefully make me do, I would just get hit with truth bombs about myself and vomit them up. So intense. I'm sure there's a lot of what happens in the night that you don't remember like beyond probably 2 or 3 days. But that's the kind of the space in between the intensity of what you need to know, which is, a lot of people do journal. For me, I'm like, no, I want to process it. Because the thing is, I'm still processing now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still on the diet. I'm still going through it. And that happens for a long time. I think you could write it down, you could write voice stuff, but now I'm kind of more set on like, cool, process it, take it in. This is what I'm going to do in my life now. This isn't what I'm going to do. And you kind of go on your way there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Was it hard to start taking action straight after, like once you've processed it, once you've digested everything that's come to the surface? Like, we're talking about like the path is already laid out for you.
Yeah.
But are there things that you have been compelled to do, or like have you found it difficult to execute?
This time around, no, because a lot of what I got slapped with was just my own health.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been a tough one to do, because going through the whole fat shaming yourself thing, like that's a super easy action item task for me. Like that was a big takeaway of my trip. I've got my 10-year reunion coming up in a month and a bit, and my role would have been to go there and get fucked up for 2 days, because that's kind of who I am and what I do. And it was said to me, it's like, you're making a deal with me, like you're not going and you're not doing that. So a lot of things that happen like that, I'm like, you know what? And I actually feel more balanced and in touch with myself knowing that, because it was like the old role that I would have played. So a lot of kind of going back to your question, like processing things like that, it's not tough, but it's just different. It's different from people who probably I went to school with, like when they know that I'm not going and staying at home and sober. But that's cool. That's where the growth comes in. And that's where some of the big slaps and hugs come in.
Yeah, probably gives you more, I guess, ownership and because you can choose and decide. And I guess old Jayden might have gone, I'm going to go and get pissed 2 days, and I'm probably not going to feel great about myself afterwards. But you, Jayden, can be like, cool, I know where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's a massive acceptance, which is cool. Like I'm not dwelling on it. I'm actually like super detached from it. I'm not stoked and I'm not unstoked. It is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that comes from it. It's just like acceptance and like, okay, cool, I get it.
I like that.
Sick.
And hence why, I'm going to do this now for the rest of my life. Like at least once a year. Just to kind of fine tune it again, because every time you go back, there's something new. And it's like, cool. And I kind of had that come down from the last one. I reckon at about like the October, November mark, I did start going back to some old patterns. So it was great that I went back there. And it's like, okay, now I'll get it. Like, you'll ride out this high for a while. You'll do like the tuning thing will kind of go past. And if you don't play, you don't do the other work, then you're the same person.
Yeah,
8 months down the track.
Well, it's not like it gives you the keys to the city and everything's sweet, right?
Yeah.
It just gives you that, like, little reminder / here's a couple of tools to start changing things, and here's a slight shift in mindset. But if you decide to not do these things, you're just going to go back to the thing.
Yeah, it's like any kind of habit.
Yeah.
Right? But the cool thing about this habit is it's not controlled by anyone but yourself. You know, no one is pushing it on you like, hey, look, you should really, you know, get back into your training, or you should be doing this and this, because it's someone else's beliefs pushed on you.
Yeah.
Which only lasts as long as it lasts. So to have your own beliefs slapped on you, it's like, cool.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. The shaman took a liking to you this time, right?
Yeah, he did. So this is wild, and this is just the power of how crazy this can all get. So I'll tell this story. Won't go for too long. It's worth it.
Yeah, we got time.
So to kind of frame out how this one went is I did 4 nights, so split over 2 ceremonies. Did one Saturday, Sunday, took a week off, did another Saturday, Sunday. First one I did with these 2 women shaman who I've met before. They're awesome. And the role of that one was kind of going into the feminine Peru brew that those women do, which was really cool. And then I had a week until I saw Taita, who was the big masculine one that I'd heard a lot about. So this is kind of when it all changed for me, right? When I understood, okay, there is like a level above, and people are kind of playing on this level of consciousness that you don't see in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
And going back to that story that I was telling you about before with being stuck in that circle of truth, I was fully stuck. I wasn't coming out of it. And after it was turning into a reality, like into the truth, and I was just so over just getting slapped in that and vomiting, I was like, oh, can someone just help me? I couldn't even yell out to anyone because I was so deep in my journey. It then turned into hell. And so this circle was hell, and it was dragging me into it. And at that time, I'm like, oh, I'm dying. I'm like, this is it. I'm getting taken away. This is hell.
See you later.
This sucks. Like, this is really... And I started, like, shaking and crying. I'm like, I don't want to go yet. Like, I don't want to go yet. Just let me see it through. I don't want to go yet. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just going, please, like, don't let me die this way. This sucks. And then as soon as that happens, this vision comes into where I'm at. And it's tighter. And it's the shaman that I'm seeing the next weekend. And I obviously hadn't met him before, but I knew what he looked like. I'd seen photos, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm in this bathroom having this conversation with Taita. And I'm going, I need help. He's like, good. He's like, I'm seeing you next weekend. He's like, I'm not going to be easy on you. He's like, I'm going to be stern. He's like, I'm going to take you on. He's like, be prepared. He's like, I can help you get out of this, like out of the hell trip that I was in. I was like, yeah, cool. He's like, I need you to give me something though. He's like, if you want to get out of this, I need you to give me something. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay. I'm leaning over the bench at this time. I'm talking to him, and I'm like actually having a conversation now. I'm like, okay, Taita, okay. I'm saying that out loud. And then one of the craziest things that will ever happen is my hand started shaking in front of my face, and it's just shaking, and it gets drawn closer and closer to my body, and then it touches my heart. And then my heart comes out of my chest, and it shakes, and it comes out, and I'm still shaking away, and then I kind of like give it to him. And as soon as I gave it to him, I snapped out of it. I snapped out of the hellhole, and I walked back to my bed and just kind of like laid there and just like sunk it in for a while and sobered up for a little bit, right? And so that was a thing in itself, right? And that happened, did another ceremony the night after. And then the next week I went and saw Taita, which was awesome. And one of the things that happened was I didn't tell him at that point what had happened the week before, because I didn't want that to play into it. Like if that was just like a weird kind of coincidence, like thing. I didn't want to be like, hey dude, just letting you know, you've got my heart, whatever. And so the first night I really set myself the intention of drinking as much as possible to have an ego death, blow myself out. Like, really, if you're going to go for it, how far can you do it? Not from like, I want to be a loose unit, like come back, tell everyone how. I'm like, no, if you've come all the way to see this person, this guy's the real deal, which he is, totally believe that. And so I did 5 cups, blew myself out of reality, had the biggest fit in front of everyone, but everyone's going crazy. And what happens when you sit there is the next morning you can't let anything leave the room. So if you have a question or you have a concern or you want to do something, you've got to speak with the person who serves it, right?
Yeah.
You can't go back, come back to Sydney and be like, hey man, can I talk to someone about it?
Yeah.
So I said to Taito, I was like, obviously last night I went for it, did 5 cups, everyone knows what happened, had a massive blowout. Should I aim for that again tonight, or is there balance?
Yeah.
Like, should I just have 1 cup now? Like, you really went for it last night, just chill tonight and do it. And he only speaks Spanish, so he's got his interpreter there, Carlos. And Carlos starts speaking in Spanish to Taito, and then he laughs. And he goes, Jayden, last night was just the rehearsal. He goes, tonight is the grand party. Tonight is going to be much more intense than last night. And I'd blown it the night before. At one point I was like, I've died. Ambulance are in here. They're dragging me out. It's going to be on the news. Guy dies, like ayahuasca thing. I'm in eternity. I believed that for a long time in that trip. So me sitting there going like, fuck, that was the first night. And so what he said to me, he's like, tonight I want you to listen to the medicine. The medicine will tell you how much you need to drink. Okay, cool. So I go and I do 1 cup. And I go back and I'm laying there for about 20, 25 minutes and it hasn't really hit me. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to go for it again tonight. This is a sign. I'm going to go crazy. And as soon as that thought leaves my mind, I start purging and I can't get it out of my throat. So at that time, it wasn't like a vision or it wasn't like you weren't hallucinating. Like I was literally choking on my own vomit. And I couldn't swallow it and I couldn't vomit it out. And so I'm there going, fucking dying, the most gruesome death in the world. I would not wish this on my worst enemy. It was by far the most horrific feeling, slow death kind of thing that I could imagine. And so luckily enough, I've been able to roll over and crawl to one of the healers there. And at this stage, I'm crying. And I grab him and I bring him in close. I'm like, Carlos, I don't want to die this way. Like, this is gruesome. Please don't let me die choking on my own vomit.
Yeah.
And then all the healers come over and they start pushing me down and kind of getting myself over and they're just going, just breathe. And I'm like, ooh. I'm going and they're like, just breathe. And then I lose control. Vomit, piss, everything just starts coming out of me and my body goes into a fit. So I have this intense episode and everyone's still in silence at this point. So for the first couple of hours, everyone's in silence and you just kind of process, right? And so I've had this fit, spewed, everything, hit the deck, and then I pass out. And as soon as I come out of that and come back into the space, everything changed in that ceremony and I started communicating with Taita in the ayahuasca. So he sits in a separate room right next to him. He just sits there most of the night and just blesses the medicine, talks into the medicine, sings like the Icarus into the medicine. You'll come in and get healings off him. You'll come drink when he's in there, but he stays in there to control the medicine, right? And this is by far the most intense thing that has ever happened to me. And there's been a few things in my life. The ayahuasca started talking through me and I started verbally speaking in a different voice. And so after I've passed out in front of everyone, I sit up and I start going, Taita, Taita. And he's grunting back at me, and I'm going in this weird voice that I've just picked up, and I was just going, Taita, bring me more medicine, Taita. And so I've just lost my shit in front of everyone, and I'm asking to drink more. But it's not me, like, asking for it. And I'm there, I'm going, Taita, thank you for this gift, Taita. Thank you. This is not for me, Taita.
That's so insane.
This is for all of us, Taita. We are all one. I will drink for all of us, Taita. Thank you. And this is happening, and in my head I'm going like, what the fuck is going on? What's coming out of my mouth? I'm basically throwing myself under the bus, and I'm taking the hit for the whole. I'm taking the hit for the whole room. Going to drink all the ayahuasca under the sun, and it's going. And then I'm having this like really intense like conversation with him, and people are sitting up and they're going like, what the hell is going on? And I'm just going Taita, Taita, Taita. And then they're like, let me help you back to your bed. And I was like, no, I will crawl. And I'm having these like servant things. I'm like, I will crawl for Taita. I will crawl. And I'm dragging myself across the floor. I get myself into the bed. And from that point, it really understood with me what it meant by listening to the medicine. And so I went back and I did another 5 cups. Another 4. Like, so I did 5 in total.
Yeah.
Right? But as the whole experience was going through, I was just connected to him. There was nothing else. There was no like, any kind of consults or whatever. It was like I was playing on this level with him that was we're going at each other. And so when I go in to get and throughout the night, I'm just like yelling at him at random points, just going, Taita, Taita. And it's all happening. And then I go into the healing room, and as you go in there, they use these tools like agua. They drink and they spit it on you and do the healings and the fans. It's fucking intense. One of the most intense, beautiful things you can do. And I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden this vision comes up and it says, Jayden, you need to speak to Carlos, who is his interpreter. You need to tell him that I'm speaking to you right now, and I want you to honour Taita. I want you to honour him and hand over your name. And that's one conversation that really can spin you.
Yeah.
Like, he can throw you out. It threw me out. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, what do I do? Do I not listen to what I'm being told and go back to my bed and just kind of act like nothing is happening? This whole episode isn't happening right now? Or do I go and hand over and say, this is what's happening, right? And so I do. I'm like, this is too much of a thing, right? And so I say to Carlos, I go, Carlos, the medicine's asking me to honour Taita's name. I don't know what this means. Can you speak to Taita? And so they go and have this conversation in Spanish, and then he comes over to me and puts his hand on my forehead and he gives me this blessing. He's like, yes, yes. And as soon as I accepted that, the whole world spun around. As I was saying to you guys before, this intense thing, everything spun, like the vortex, just going crazy. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And it stopped. And as soon as it stopped, still right now, I've never ever felt so much peace and acceptance and understanding of everything, right? To the point, I said before, I really thought that I could live off water. That like I was so pure that I'm like, fuck, I've just become immortal. Which obviously you don't think an hour or two later, right? And in that moment when that happened, I've had a past where I've had issues with like gambling and all this kind of stuff, and I've always thought, and even in my deepest things where I've had those nights where I just lose the plot, drop heaps of money, get pissed, come home and kind of sit there and go, what the fuck is wrong with me? I always knew that there was some kind of imbalance in my life, and as soon as that happened, it's wiped.
Yeah, wow.
Which is something I don't think I'll ever be able to explain. And long story short, after all this kind of stuff happens, what I then find out is Taita isn't his name, it's a title. And it gets handed down through the medicine. So his name is Taita Juanito, and he's got that honour as a Taita, and there's only a handful in the world. And so what's happened to me is through this experience, I've found out that I'm someone that can channel through the ayahuasca, which is a really fucking hard thing to come back into the real life with.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's different.
It is different, but I've never ever felt more right.
Yeah.
And look, to me right now, it's not something that I'm going to take up right this minute. I've still got so much unfinished business I want to do here with businesses and whatnot, but I could definitely not see myself. I know I will be doing this work in 5 years' time, easy. And yeah, it's absolutely wild. And then to finish it off, he took me in the room and he puts his hand and he puts it back into my heart. He's like, you can have this back now. And I was just like, no, that's me done. That's me done. Yeah. And it just blew. And it's wild. And the most magical thing about it all really was more the sense of how much that affected the room, more so than me. Because that's kind of what it was channeling. Yep. It's like, hey, this isn't you, like this is me coming through you for this. And a lot of people who sit with him go on tour with him where they might sit 30, 40 times a year with him and just follow him around. And having those conversations with some of the women and the guys there saying like, that was the most ridiculous, beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's just a really, really overwhelming but amazing thing. Yeah.
It's really interesting. There's so much to process, and I have a lot of different questions. But I guess
far away.
If we go like past Wallace, where we've got a lot of and there's obviously still doubts and stuff come up.
Yeah.
But knowing you and appreciating you and like the journey you've been on and stuff, like it obviously gives everything that you talk about a lot more weight than if someone on the street would be like, you're a fucking idiot, carry on. So how do you deal with, I don't know if backlash is the right word, but like there's obviously a lot of charlatans in the world doing fucking weird shit that doesn't do anything. How do you kind of talk about that and like address that?
Yeah. So this is like, I'll semi-answer that question first.
Yeah.
That's also been one of the most intense things about what happened, was going through that after process of like accepting what's going to be said about this. Because to the untrained eye, if I heard one of my mates say this or whatever, I'd be like, he's fucking lost it. Which is a great acceptance because it's someone else's thing. And like for me, it's like if I'm completely 100% still know that I'm like in tune, I'm not off with the fairies, not any more than I was before, then that's all that kind of matters.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to the kind of the shamans and the real deal, it is one of those things where, like I said, I don't think anyone subjectively is better than the other one. I think the only thing where this goes wrong is where people don't treat it right. You know, I spoke to someone post doing my trip and they're like, oh yeah, I've done ayahuasca before. It was real funny. Like we drank it and then the shaman went like back into his other room and was like drinking whiskey and watching TV. I'm like, it's like doing a fucking CrossFit class at Fitness First and going a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
Like they're not the same thing. And I think that's probably the kind of, as this gets more open to the Western world, it has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
You know, a lot more people are going to hear about it and use it as a tool and fully believe it can really change the world. And then the flip side of that is there are a lot of Westerners doing it. So there are a lot of cowboy shamans who can set up shop.
And people would know the difference, right?
They would know the difference. And I think that's why you need to do the research. And if anyone was listening and wanting to do it, my best two recommendations would be a place in Costa Rica called Rhythmia. That's where I first started.
Yep.
Which is a great tool because you go through, it is a 5-star resort. And so you have so much aftercare, you have so much information, you know, you really get your hand held through it, especially if you've never dove into anything else before, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you the tools where they use medicines from it, you know, across the world. Peru, Colombia, I think there's even a Hawaiian brew maybe, don't quote me on that. But you can find out what you like and you don't like. Because some people love the Colombian and hate the Peru and vice versa. A lot of people don't like the Colombian one because it's the masculine one. Like it's tough. And then the other one is Taita, who's at a place called Finca Abuasi down in Colombia, and him and his team are real deal. He's been working with it since he was 7. His great granddad's still a shaman. He's 109 and does ceremonies still.
Yeah.
So the lineage of that is amazing.
Yeah.
And basically what happened to me on that night was like a rebirth for the medicine of Taita. And the Taita that I sat with, he's 29, and that's happened to him 5 times. And most people will be lucky to have it once out of the very small amount of people in the world that it happens to. So, I would suggest if you do it, don't just bite the bullet and find someone in the Blue Mountains who says they've got a bit of it. If you do, cool, like it's still like all the same kind of thing. And like once again, like not rinsing on those people, like they could be those people, but I think just do the research, because it's so important who does that, who holds the energy, who serves it, that if you do take massive shortcuts for convenience, you're going to get, a minuscule of what it actually is. And you'll probably go, no, I'm doing this again.
Having experienced what you've experienced, do you feel as though in a certain way it's kind of like your duty to share the message?
Yeah. It was my duty before what happened at the Taita thing. So I actually got a bit of a notebook here from the San Pedro. So when I did the San Pedro after the first ayahuasca trip, I was writing down dot points. And one of them was like, spread the message.
That's cool.
Share your wisdom with the world. That was one of them. And that was just coming from like what happened beforehand. I was just going, cool, you've spoken to a lot of people about your first experience, but you put a lens on that which probably you shouldn't have in a way, which was like, fuck man, I turned into a snake. Some guy did this and this, and then everyone's just like, oh, I can't wait to hear the loose stories and whatnot. So it wasn't giving it justice. And then when I went deep in this next one and worked with 6 or 7 different medicines at one time and got the full depth of how it works, I was like, you need to come back and tell a different story. It's good to, there will always be that funny side to it, like anything that you do when you get in those states. So there's always one way that you could, share. And there was other stories that kind of happened in that one that were funny. But if the purpose is to share the message and, maybe it affects one person, tell it right.
Yeah.
Which was cool. I got like a lot of things out of this journal that's here in front of me. It's funny to go through it. Speak nothing but the truth. That was the first one. I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from the first experience I did.
Yep.
And I'm sure we're all probably guilty of this, is like adding a bit of GST to everything. And it was like slapping me with that. It was like, a lot of people will talk about, where they are in terms of success or whatever, and then add that little bit on top. And it happens across everything. Probably happens in your gym with how much you back squat. So it was really kind of slapping me in that sense of just going like, fuck that. Like, you have to speak absolute truth. That's the only. It's important. That's the only way.
65 kilos for anyone asking. 2 blues.
Got 5 on top of me at the moment.
I guess that's really exciting. And like, obviously you said there's more to do here.
Yeah.
In terms of before you kind of explore that area. Like what is it that you want to do or that you have to do?
Working on a new business now. I want to completely get that to where we want it to get to.
Yep.
I want to but move into it with absolutely no burdens.
Yep.
Like financially be free enough to go on that. Like another funny thing that's changed for me, I'm sure a lot of people in this boat, is like my success now is so different to what it was before. Like my success was fucking making as much money as I can, having the sickest house, this like that long-term goal.
Yeah.
For me, it's like the polar opposite now. It's like being lucky enough to work with something which I fully believe is a healer and can help people. And if that means that I'm fucking living in Colombia for the rest of my life, then that's okay. But I want to be in that place where
you can make
all my kind of like debts and stuff are paid off. I've got cash there to travel and do all that. but it's not like, hey, I want to put a deposit down on a house or do this, and just really play the long game with it. I'll be going back in the next year or two to just go sit with Taito again and just go through that and just really make sure that I'm still working with it, and then go for it. Like, I'm in no rush either. It's a lifelong journey. It is a lifelong journey, and I think if I went now when I'm not probably set up to do that, there would be a lot of negativity, because I believe, like, if through the medicine I'm there to heal other people, I've got to be my best self as well. And so I'm not at the moment. Like, I've got work to do, fitness, everything. Like, you've got to be in abundance to do this kind of work.
Of course.
So yeah, it's a journey.
It's exciting. Big responsibility, right?
Huge responsibility. At one point, I need to change my name, that's a hectic oversight. Yeah, logistically, because when I was in it was like, your name's now just Taito. Like, that's it, no last name. But then once I've come back and I've started, like,
it's gonna be really hard to find you on Facebook,
filling out my passports and shit like that, I'm like, nah, I'm just going to move Jayden to my middle name, become my full name. Like, I logistically don't want to go through that nightmare. Used to have it with the old work email, not having a .com. I'm like, that's a big enough pest as it is. This email doesn't work with our server. I was like, well, fuck. Not having our last name is going to be a bad.
That's going to be a little annoying.
So look, and another wild thing that happened on top of that is, no offense to mum and dad if you're listening.
Shout out
to mum and dad. This is a deep thing, and this is a really big takeaway from it, is all through life when I've had my name, I don't think I've really, like, walked into it with confidence. And some great examples are, like, going to a cafe. You're like, what's your name? Jayden. And they're like, Jason, Jared, this or this. And I think there is something in that name thing. And I was catching myself unintentionally saying things like, if they're like, what's it, Jayden? And I'm like, don't worry, it's a shocker. Like, as a joke. Right. I'm like, the amount that plays on you, so that when this happened in that ceremony, I got honored that name, I was like on my bed, shirt off, like in this weird kind of like flex over pose. I was like, don't. And ever since I've accepted that, I've felt more strength in myself. Plus my lifts have gone up at work. From 50 to 60. From 50 to 60. So that, like, to me, that's an interesting piece as well. And I think it can relay into more than just myself, like business and stuff. Yeah. I think that's really important. If someone's not vibing on the name, I think there's actually way more to a name now than what it is.
100%.
So, like, that's not... To me, it's something that I'm really looking forward to my parents. They're probably going to fucking lose their shit. I haven't told them yet. So I wanted to wait a little bit, just so it's not like I've come back from this trip and just be like, yo, mum and dad, thanks for the last 28 years of it, but I'm dropping it. Yeah, so really interesting. I know they're a big fan of the podcast, so... yeah, man, it's been
that's good. I like that.
It is an interesting thing, and fucking, it's something that I doubt not many people will experience in their life, is going through a total shift in identity, but not as a person. That's the biggest thing that, for the few people I've told, they're like, oh, I don't want you to, like, change it or not. It's not like,
you're not changing who you are, it's just a shift in title.
I'm not turning into like a walk and, But for me, like, now I know every step forward I go with doing it, it's just a bit of an upgrade. And I believe in that. So, you can push it. I think there's some people who probably do it too much and they don't allow that, play the guitar thing, and you're always tuning. It's like always trying to find that next thing. I think that goes across life as well with people with, like, diets and training things, like, never really set and work on something. It's like, I'll be jump from that gym to that gym and that gym. It's like, fuck, why am I not getting results or where I want to be? It's because, like,
Definitely. You seem pretty content about it all. And I guess that that comes from what you said before about it all happened. The way it's meant to
I
happen.
had to be content. Like I knew, like sitting there when it was all going down, I knew the amount of intensity behind that decision and like respect for him and his culture. I couldn't just wake up the next morning and laugh it off and be like, about last night, hey, thanks for honouring your name, but not going to happen. So, look, I think everything happens for a reason. That was the most, crazy, but it just feels right. You know, I never really believed in people like saying I've found my passion and my purpose. I always thought like you found like a temporary purpose.
Yeah.
But now, like me personally, and now I believe other people when they say it, is like, yeah, you actually can. And I know now that this will be my path. Post getting the shit done here that I need to get done.
Yeah.
Which is
It's going to be an exciting journey. We've got a couple of questions for you to take wherever you want to take them.
Yeah.
What are you proud of?
What am I proud of? Good question. I think I'm proud of owning my shit now and doing the work, which is cool. I think it's probably one thing that the three of us guys do really well. Is, you know, doing the work and owning it. You know, being vulnerable in those kind of states as well. And yeah, I think I'm proud of a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of years. Alchemy was a big one.
Yeah.
You know, it was great to have an impactful job. I'd come off a lot of jobs which were just kind of working for cash.
Yeah.
You know, mine work, labouring work, you know, stuffing away work where you're just like, cool, this is a thing to pay the bills. Because it's good. It's awesome to see you guys as well, like your growth. I think it's got nothing to do with me, but it's good to
definitely
see
played a big role. So
I'm proud of that, to like see people that I've worked with now going on and doing huge things, which is cool. So that's probably what I'm proud of.
I like that.
Hell yeah. What are you most confident on moving forward?
Just back in everything that happens. Playing to yourself, it's a big thing. Like not playing out of tune. So I'm confident in that. Confident in like every day kind of resetting, going through and be like, cool, today's the day. Not planning for too far in the future, not thinking about the past. Just being confident that everything is where you need it to be right now. That was a great takeaway that I got from him. He's like, everything is where it needs to be right now. Don't think about, you know, I even remember coming out of that last ceremony and Taito was doing an amazing speech and he goes, what's gone wrong with the world is we just think too much. And he goes like, that's what creates sickness and that's what creates this and this is the overthought. He goes, or, you know, we just went on the biggest journey last night. We went through this grand party. He goes, all you should be thinking about right now is what fruit are you going to have for breakfast? Because it was about for breakfast. And he's like, it's a joke, but he goes like that, because that's being present, that's being in the moment, not thinking like, oh, you know, what time's my flight tomorrow night? I hope I'm not fucking late for it. Because he's like, that wasn't there thousands of years ago. And I know that for sure, like thought and that creates a lot of sickness. I know a lot of people who just fucking think too much.
And when you're aware of it, you can start catching yourself and going, well, fuck, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, definitely.
What's happening tomorrow afternoon?
For sure.
Today.
And it's a very internal thing. Like I would have found myself, to be honest, like 2 months ago, being in this podcast, but not being in here. Like doing it, but then like not actually listening as much as I should have been, or doing this and
about
like
something else.
worrying about this and this and this, and then you catch yourself in this loop of going to bed every night and be like, what the fuck happened today? Like I was so far into like the next thing, and then you just go through the days. Yeah.
What excites you most about your, like this, like not newfound, but like this growth? What you've experienced?
I think it's probably going to be leaving like a true legacy. You know, getting out of those rooms in the morning, there is no feeling like that. And the amount of respect that you have for the people who serve that is huge. You know, so
I like that.
yeah,
That's cool.
And And it is, and this is going to be the hard conversations that I have with a lot of people, is it is the ultimate sacrifice in a way. Like you are really just working.
Serving others.
You're serving others. You're not serving yourself. You're not going to be pulling $200,000 a year as a shaman and, you know, living in...
Hey, could blow up.
Eastern suburbs. Yeah, it could blow up. Go through the roof there.
The shaman, I think, shaman of super.
Yeah, maybe I'll just come back and do the Eastern suburbs shamanism.
Awesome.
That's what it is for me. It's like, I know what I'm in for.
Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with that. More than okay.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good. Any more for any more?
Good for me.
Mate, thank you.
That was a good podcast.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to digesting that a couple of times.
Yeah. I'm just going to have to play this on replays for my parents now. Maybe I'll just scoot off.
This is the conversation.
I'm not telling them as we go to Gold Coast.
Wait, what do you mean? Just listen to it?
Yeah, just sort of skip through the 40-minute mark. You get a shout out and then it goes downhill from there.
Very good.
That's awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man.